thank you for coming. Can you hear me at the back? Is it loud enough? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. Good evening. I read from a script, so I'm sorry if that's disappointing. I won't do the entire thing from this sheet of paper, but I do actually read some of what I write. So bear with me, and I have something to read to you all. Thank you so much for coming. I've already been, just by the way, shown hospitality that's just absolutely second to none, and I'm really, really touched that there's some faces here. People have come to see me that I know from being online, and I really appreciate it. I have to admit that I've been absolutely terrified of giving this talk because I so desperately don't want to let any of you down, and I couldn't think for the life of me what to talk about to such an already well-informed audience. I know from Rhonda's description of you as a group, and Sandy Adams gave me a cross-country journey today to get me here, and just from the faces that are in the audience and from what I've heard, that I'm standing in front of some of the most knowledgeable people in the country as regards Agenda 2030, and that many people here will already have seen my hugely exciting LED street lighting party piece, and the potentially unintended nefarious capabilities of this once innocuous neighbourhood installation now patrolling the length and breadth of British streets and streets all over the Western world, intended to form the backbone of a 24/7 track and trace surveillance network. And I know that everyone here will already have heard about smart cities and how they are intended to stack and pack the masses into 20-minute neighbourhoods with a 10-minute radius, which blew my mind, 10-minute radius, where the inmates, residents, rent rather than own anything as part of a circular economy, which involves reusing all their sensor-filled packaging in order not to exceed their carbon credit allotment, which is monitored by means of the Internet of Things and updated via their digital ID, and doesn't in any case credit them with enough carbon to fly anywhere, but how that doesn't matter because all the airports are going to be shut anyway in a bid to achieve carbon neutrality, because getting rid of all privately owned vehicles in favour of active travel wasn't enough to offset the gas that the plants use in order to produce the life-giving oxygen that all of us breathe. I know that I don't have to explain to anyone here how an environmental and social governance score is simply a social credit system for businesses whereby global multinationals will get a disproportionate say in how society evolves by withholding their social impact investment funds from any business or organisation that doesn't toe the rainbow-hued carbon neutrality line. And how this will impact on their employees because their own personal social credit score will be taken, and carbon credit compliance will be taken into account, which means that they'll have to walk or cycle to work come rain or shine, weigh their leftover food, and I kid you not, Zero Waste Scotland wants their employees to weigh their leftover food in terms of what they're calling unavoidable waste, which is apparently like a banana peel, and avoidable waste, which is the New World Order word for leftovers. I find that quite startling, and the effect that all of this will have on employees in their workplace. It won't just affect you outside of your workplace, it will affect you in your workplace, whether you like it or not, because you will be required to comply in order to boost the social capital of the organisation. And the organisation needs that social capital in order to get the investment funding, because that will form the basis of some of their environmental and social governance score. Ideally, they would actually, rather than having you, commute to work on your bike, have you work from home in glorious Zoom-filled isolation until you're replaced by an automated service. At which point you can live on your universal basic income and spend time in the metaverse buying clothes for your avatar, rather than cluttering up the planet with your in real life social interaction, which is actually just so last century. And I know that you all know that the intention is to create not just a carbon economy, but a data economy where all of the surveillance data enables the very wealthy to predict how well we, the communitarian masses, are able to comply with the greater good philosophy and gamble on the predicted outcomes of our children's attempt to navigate the technocratic hell which we have bequeathed them. So, what am I going to talk about to you? You know it all. I also know that Will Keep was here, and he's spoken to you about a viable alternative embedded in constitutional law, where rather than limiting freedoms with endless legislation, we apply natural law and all hold ourselves accountable to the one simple principle that we should do no harm. I think that's well worth thinking about. I don't have background knowledge in it like he does, but I found it to be quite a persuasive alternative, and I think that having an alternative at the moment is something that we all need to work together as a group, because telling everybody what's wrong, that's appropriate. We really need to tell everybody what's wrong and repeat it over and over again. But people will start to ask the good question, which is, what are we going to do instead? And if you don't have any kind of answer, then they may be too frightened to pick up on their initial sort of understanding, that moment of clarity where they understood what you were talking about and they connected and they saw what was happening. They might be too frightened if you don't have anything to offer them. So finding out a little bit about constitutional law might be a good place to start with that. So all of that being the case, I found it a bit of a challenge to work out what on earth to say. But now I've used up a wee bit of time talking about what you already know, so that went well. And I thought I might begin by reassuring you that you're not crazy. You are, in fact, living through that bit of history where the richest people in the world try to effect a global governance coup in order to exert totalitarian control over the world's population and turn humanity into androgynous, bio-digitally converged automatons. Unlikely though it sounds. That's really what's happening now. Even a quick buzzword search of your area illustrates, now I know that you're all from sort of hither and yon, so some of you from Stroud, some of you from Gloucestershire, some of you from Bristol, well, not necessarily, I think maybe Oxfordshire as well. So this is not intended well, I'll carry on reading because I'm better at that. So even a quick buzzword search of your area illustrates that your local councils are applying exactly the same organically conceived, sustainable development, own goal-driven philosophies, and implementing exactly the same policies as local councils all over the Western world. And if you've seen any of my videos at all, which there's no reason why you should, but if you have, you'll see that I often use Glasgow City Council's propaganda, their policy, to explain terms like the circular economy, smart cities, the Internet of Things, 20-minute neighbourhoods, also known as livable neighbourhoods. I know you all know all the various names for those. Low traffic neighbourhoods, and the zero phenomenon, for instance, zero waste or net zero, which, just as an aside, I personally think is right up there with, in the ridiculous stakes with most of the sustainable development statements. Because, I mean, you can't neutralize carbon dioxide the world over, molecule for molecule. It's just absurd. I mean, it's just utterly absurd. It's, startlingly absurd. And I don't know if people here are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, probably, but they come from the United Nations. There are 17 of them. When you first hear, so for instance, number 1 is to end poverty for all around the world. And that doesn't, it's not a bad objective, but it's very facile. And when you see it in conjunction with Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which is to end hunger, and you begin to wonder about, if ending poverty doesn't end hunger, then, what does poverty mean, and what are we ending in the first one? Or is this all just a means of sort of controlling people into certain kinds of behavior? Because poverty, for instance, as a word, the definition of it, it becomes a sort of moving goalpost because obviously the more the wealthy everybody is, or the more everybody has, the more people perceive as required for their basic necessities. So the Sustainable Development Goals, at first when you see them, yeah, they seem, they're almost appealing. But when you really think them through, they don't make logical sense. And the problem with them is, that you can't make the world that simple. You can't make the world so simple that you can run it from one centralized operations center in the middle of sort of the world, the global, the WHO or the WEF or wherever they decide to do it from, Davos. You can't apply the same policy everywhere and have, happy, free people. And so the end game is not to have happy, free people, it's to have people that are controlled and people that don't drive their private cars and take public transport all the time. People who have learned to not turn the light on and, not open doors for other people, because that's social interaction. And that, the number of friends that I've made at university anyway, just holding the door open for somebody who's going down the same hall and saying hello. These things matter. If you take them away from children's lives, then these little social interactions, if you automate everything, that's a huge loss for, for humanity. It's already hard enough for us, I think, to hold on to community, with the way that the Western world has sort of gone culturally. It's hard enough now. If you erase, standing in a queue and talking to the shopkeeper or, the attendant, just the little things that we have left, then it's not going to be a haven of perfection and joy. It's going to be very lonely. It's going to be very lonely. And obviously then they intend that you'll go into the metaverse because you are so lonely. And then, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a picture, Bantam Joe, who we were talking about before anyway. He was a guy who was online. He was very, very clever, IT oriented. Anyway, there was a photo that he had, or a picture on one of his documents, and it was of a teenager with their arms bound and their legs bound, and they were kind of looking a bit tatty and like a prisoner, and they're backed into the corner of a room, and they have goggles on their face, and they have the earphones over them, and it's horrific. It's a horrific picture. It's a horrific thing to bequeath them. We mustn't do it. If you have a population of kids who are largely doing that, then you have, that's wonderful. You've nullified any kind of resistance or opposition. You really can go about your global governance business and nobody's actually going to give you a hard time. Anyway, I thought that I would show you that it's so easy to, sometimes, how do you talk about this in a way that doesn't put people off? Because I think that just for going forward at the moment, there are some topics which are so contentious and they've done so much damage and they've blown up in so many people's faces, and perhaps it's time just for a while that they're left alone, because if you try to bring vaccinations, for instance, into the talk about Agenda 2030 just now, I think you may lose people unnecessarily. That you don't have to explain if you know for yourself how the whole thing is actually linked. I don't think you necessarily have to start there. You can start with things like, did you know that your local council is producing policy which is identical to the policy of the local councils all over our country and also all over Melbourne and all over France? And so in fact, just in that simple, by seeing that, you can see that this is not organic coming up. This is top down, yeah? And that, I feel like that's something that you can, anybody would probably be willing to talk to you about that, and then if you know your buzzwords, and if you want buzzword sort of proficiency. There's a girl called Julianne Romanello, and she's really excellent with buzzwords, and she really recommends that you familiarise yourself with the ones that are, so they change them just ever so slightly across different countries, not all of them, but some of them, and you can see when you read the change what the tweak was for, how it appeals to a different culture as opposed to the one that you've got. So that's why we've got livable neighbourhoods and 20-minute neighbourhoods and 15-minute neighbourhoods and C40 cities. It's somebody's perception of what will go down better in their local area. But once you know the buzzwords for your own country, and ours are, I'll go through a couple of hours with you just now, then you can pull up documentation. All you have to do is type into Google, you know, so in this case you go in and you put, I don't know actually, do you know why I pulled this one up? I pulled this one up, I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you have, I do apologise. I don't think it does any harm to sort of consolidate knowledge anyway, but this is the 2030 Strategy Master Plan, and I just thought, you know, I thought master plans were for evil cartoon heroes, and here we have, you know, Stroud doing it, so that's really the only reason for that, except that this is, if you live in Stroud, this is your consultation that was done to, because you guys all agreed, I don't know if you know this, but you all agreed that you wanted to be carbon neutral by 2030, not just the council, but all of you. That was really nice of you, you agreeable people. I suspect perhaps you didn't know, or at least some of you here would know, but many people may not know that, and it's interesting what year councils are choosing to do this by. Now in Britain, our commitment is to have this done by 2050. Now, Scotland has decided that they want to do it by 2045. Childish one-upmanship, I'm not sure, but we're to do it by 2045, lucky us. But Stroud, you guys are special, you know, your council's going to do it by 2030. So, you know, and you're going to pioneer and you are going to trailblaze. And Stroud actually, I'll show you, that is talked about. So this is just your strategy. I'm not going to read any of it to you, but I just quickly scroll through it so you can see the extent of the detail that they, the energy and the time and the money that has gone into planning this. Now, assuming you didn't agree or didn't even get the option of thinking about it, it may interest you to know that this is where the money is going. This is what your local council is spending money doing. Up here, we'll come over here and just wait for it to connect. So this is Stroud boasting about itself, which I mean, it's got so much to boast about. Do boast about this, hey? So this is Stroud District Council 2030 strategy, limiting, adapting, recovering and responding in a changing climate. Stroud District Council's comprehensive strategy and plan, unanimously adopted in March 2021, who knew, drives progress on their commitment to a carbon neutral and ecologically resilient 2030. And despite being relatively small, you're ahead of the game. The council achieved carbon neutral operations back in 2015. This is really interesting as well. Like your council to achieve carbon neutrality, this is not even about, you know, well, I don't think it's so. In order to achieve carbon neutrality, you can either, you know, not engage in things which create carbon dioxide, breathing, but, you know, hold your breath and, you know, implement policy, or you can offset it. So one of the reasons that Bill Gates and his cohort are buying up so much land is so that they can grow any kind of what they'll call biomass, and that biomass is to be used to offset the carbon dioxide. So they've worked out, because, you know, this is also possible, how much carbon dioxide, you know, a plant is going to give you in relation to how much carbon dioxide your business is using. Again, it's what a lot of nonsense, and that is what's going on at the moment. So they also, when you look at the carbon offsetting policy, and I've seen the one for Scotland, so I'm going to take a guess that it's the same for you guys too. They are saying that they don't want you really to offset. They would prefer that the aim is for everybody actually to create none, as opposed to offsetting. Now, I would query even that, even if I were pro this, I would query that because why? Because if you're offsetting it and it's effective, then why does it matter that you try to achieve carbon neutrality rather than just offset? And it matters because of these ESG scores, because they're trying to get you to comply with a certain type of behaviour. And so they want you to go down the carbon neutrality, as in you erase your carbon dioxide production route, rather than just offsetting. But you know, there'll be some people, the rich people, who really just, yeah, they'll offset everything, and it won't matter that they haven't gone down the proper carbon dioxide neutrality route. So this is you guys, and you can find that easily. So I'm going to hop over here though, because you guys are also being praised by Friends of the Earth. You'll be proud to know. And it's your carbon neutral strategy is being touted as a kind of whatever the fancy word is for you guys being sort of leaders in your field, and everybody can watch you and learn. Yeah, anybody want to help? Trailblazers? Stroud is trailblazing the way to this. I mean, it's just so that you can show people that they actually have it in black and white. You know, it's written down to reduce the need to own and use a car by requiring that the location and design of new developments be accessible by safe cycling and walking routes and good quality public transport, and situated close to key services. So there's your 20-minute neighbourhood sort of popping up there. They're going to, any development is going to be in that 20-minute neighbourhood sphere, and they're admitting, you know, they want to get rid of your private vehicles. Now, I would, you know, I think that there's, you know, there's exhaust fumes. Probably this could be improved, you know, I don't have anything against trying to make things better. In fact, I really think that making things better is a wonderful thing, but using the environment as an excuse to exert technocratic control over humanity by trying to frighten them that the world is going to come to an end if they don't comply with all of this. That's wrong. That's just inherently wrong. It shouldn't be happening. And we mustn't allow it to happen, because it's happening to our friends and our neighbours, that they are being sucked in and not understanding the bigger picture. They, you know, they are our friends and our neighbours, and this is an awful position for people to be put in, to have to try and, you know, bring people on board that are going to, you know, find it difficult to hear what you've got to say. But, you know, that's kind of what we've got to do. Otherwise, they won't drive, our children won't drive anywhere, and they won't fly anywhere. They won't go and, you know, do, you know, travel around Europe for their, you know, on a budget, on a shoestring, you know, on a train and a bus, and, you know, be free the way that we were. And it's sad, you know, because we've enjoyed our freedoms. I mean, I might be at the far end of them, and my children limit my freedoms but I was looking forward to, you know, yeah, a future where I would go, and I would, you know, go to some of the places that I would like to see. And I don't think that, you know, a trip to the metaverse to sort of experience the Grand Canyon by, you know, through the internet, it's just not the same thing. But children won't know that unless we make sure that we don't allow it to happen. The only way for them to know it is for them to get the chance to live it. And if this all works, they won't and then we won't be able to change it, because they won't understand that there is, you know, it lacks something, that real social interaction and real sort of visual stimuli and being in a place and feeling a place actually adds something to the experience of life. So anyway, so if you live in Stroud, it's very easy to show people that you are going down the Agenda 2030 route. Then we have, again, livable neighbourhoods, really easy to pull up. Any of you can do this. This is yours, by the way. I can get all of this stuff I can get for Glasgow City Council as well, easy peasy, and you would be able to get it for Oxfordshire or anywhere. So this is the livable neighbourhood. A note on terminology: livable neighbourhoods are sometimes referred to as low traffic neighbourhoods, mini Hollands or 15-minute neighbourhoods. While there are some slight and subtle differences, these terms refer to the same type of, I don't know what you would call it, ghetto, that share the same overarching objectives, yeah? So these are, it's very easy again. So this is Bristol, and you can pull up a livable neighbourhood. Oxfordshire, I'd be really excited to hear about what I can, I'm looking for the face, where is she? There you are. What's happening in Oxford. So glad that there's actually some resistance. It really, really matters. Any group that manages to make some sort of difference, these days everything's filmed, because there are wonderful things about technology if you just don't take it too far. I mean, that's the other thing, is like, you know, we shouldn't be robbed of its utility and what it really is good at, just because these people want to, you know, to go too far with it and make it into a monster. So you can film kind of what's going on with groups nowadays, and I have seen this footage. It's not perfect footage at all, but from various places of people, just ordinary people, you know, standing up to their councils in various ways. It's really inspiring, and the more of it that we get, so the better. And it's not a nothing. It might, you know, it really isn't a nothing. It does get seen by people, it does get shared, and it does inspire people. So when you're speaking at local council, or, you know, talking to somebody, you're not just talking to them. You know, you're talking to all the connections, and it's just valuable. It's really valuable. Don't ever feel alone when you're doing it, because you're not. So I thought you would probably know already, but I, you know, just to sorry, there we go. We'll go back to that. So this is your Bristol Operations Centre. Now Bristol's the council will have sunk a huge amount of money into this, because it's an emergency control centre, it's a traffic management control centre, it's a community safety CCTV, but that'll get upgraded to sort of a high definition facial recognition cameras, which will be affixed to these LED street lights that you see absolutely everywhere. That's the idea. They're the infrastructure, they're the backbone. And they give you the opportunity to add functionality, and the functionality will be added. They didn't put them up all over the Western world, you know, literally almost overnight comparative to anything else that ever gets built, for, you know, just so that we could have better street lighting. You know, really they didn't, you know, so that information will feed into this operations centre. Glasgow has one too. It all sounds really kind of, you know, creepy. So Glasgow has one of these too, and I showed this to some of the people in Glasgow when I was there. And I just wanted to scroll down to one of these. So it says here, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that, now where is it? I do apologise. Well, even if I can't find the right sentence, my point was, they are sharing information in order to, they say, you know, respond to emergencies. But this is your information, and we're at that juncture where the legislation is not sufficient to stop people from taking liberties with your privacy. So you're going to have to stand up for it, unfortunately, until either we get legislation to catch up, or we you know, the infrastructure somehow magically disappears overnight. So this is, you know, in order for all of this to work, all of the data has to be merged, and it all has to be available for, you know, the police. Or, and I don't know, does everybody feel comfortable with, you know, their 17-year-old child being on camera all the time, and for everything that they ever do, you know, to be accessible to some third party? Imagine the fear that, you know, if that's the world you grow up in. It was hard enough, you know, growing up in the world that we all grew up in, to feel that your every move is being monitored, and that if you put a foot wrong, it's going to be on camera, and that it's going to be objected to, and that it's going to have implications not just for your, you know, immediate time, but for your long-term future, because it'll go down on your social credit score, and it'll be something that can be reflected on for decades to come. I don't think that that's something that, you know, we should put children through. You know, it's hard enough. We go through our own examination system. We pit everybody against each other. We turn academic excellence or into a competition. I mean, we say it's not a competition and it's fine. It doesn't matter how you do. Everybody's equal and we all love everybody. But children don't believe that unless you actually act it out. And if you put them all in a room and you give them an exam and you rate them in terms of A, B, C, and D, then you can tell them your nice fluffy stuff as much as you like. They know that they're competing with each other on some level, and then that does something to who they are. And then this is just taking it just so much further, and to a place where, you know, I really don't think that it's appropriate to allow it to go. Internet of Things, just in case you're not hugely familiar with it, is that business of putting sensors in everything. So if you've got, you know, sensors in your packaging, so that be able to monitor, you know, are you recycling sufficiently? Sensors on your bins, they say it so that they can determine when the lorries need to come out. But I think it's unlikely that we're going to get personalised, you know, bin collection, delivery and pickup. And given that Zero Waste Scotland is looking at, you know, weighing the leftovers of their employees' food, you know, you've got to, it's just encouraging people to look at this with a slightly sort of skeptical eye, because that then, at least if you look at it skeptically, then the worst that can happen is that they are, you know, they're well intended, and you have to sort of say, oh well, you know, I really wanted to think it through, but you know, it's great that you're well intended and I accept that now. That's the worst that can happen. Whereas if you don't look at it skeptically, then you know, the worst that could happen is that, you know, we end up living in this hell, and so do our children. So the Internet of Things is about sensors and everything, again, to work in conjunction with your 5G and your LED street lighting, well, the attachments to the LED street lighting, so that everything can be monitored. I mean, it's a horrible name, isn't it? Internet of Things. It's like they ran out of brain power, like, you know, when I was looking for that word. What do we call it? The Internet of Things. Right, okay. But also, I think that's really, it's indicative of how they see us as well, because we will be part of the Internet of Things. So we are also things in the vocabulary, in the language. So anyway, you are also on track in your area for Internet of Things, and then this one I won't dwell on too much. It's just that, you know, this is also Sustrans. I was referred to this from Bristol City Council, and it is sustainable transport, and you'll find that Sustrans is popping up, helping all the councils all over the country, and in Julianne Romanello talks about it in America, and it's called transit-oriented development there. That's what they've gone for there. But you know, effectively, what they're doing is, you know, so it's kind of the planning of the streets. They are trying to develop everything so that people are pushed into using public transport. Here it's, you know, low traffic neighbourhoods, and you make it so difficult for people to get to work and the route that they would normally take. I saw a great thing. There's a girl talking about low traffic neighbourhoods, or a lady in her area, and she was saying that she was now compelled to go further you know, in her car to get to work than she was before. So by their reckoning that, you know, it's kind of exhaust fumes and so on that's, you know, so detrimental to the well-being of the world, how does that actually work? And again, you know, just this, you know, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. And then I'm just going to finish off to just prove to you that you also have a zero waste management sort of agenda going on. So you will also be, you know, this business of working towards making sure that they can track and trace everybody's recycling and everybody's sort of leftover food. That's also, you know, they hope to apply that here. So that's just a couple of the buzzwords, and I didn't have any trouble finding policy in your local area that relates to these buzzwords. So again, it can't be organic because it's, you know, the same as Glasgow's, and we're all British, but we don't, our councils and our circumstances are different, so they shouldn't be, these things shouldn't be exactly the same. One thing that Rhonda said to mention or dwell on, I mentioned it a bit in my intro, but I was a bit nervous, so I was going a bit fast, I don't know if you'll have heard me. But the circular economy is the idea that everybody will rent things, so you won't, now having, you know, made us all buy cheap tap from China that doesn't work for years and years and years, they're now going to get rid of planned obsolescence because it doesn't suit them anymore for your washing machines to break down or whatever, because you won't really have a washing machine, you'll rent it, and so then it's, you know, it's their property, and they won't want it to break down. So it's that's the cheek of it, putting us all through that, and then they're going to make stuff that actually works for themselves so they can rent it to us. They're going to rent you clothes. Genuinely, like all of this, you can find the documentation. They intend to rent you everything and for you not to own anything. So when you heard that business about you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, part of it is the circular economy. So again, the idea is that you reuse every single bit of waste. This bothers me as well. I don't, any absolute, you know, as a human, any absolute becomes problematic. It doesn't matter, everybody can apply that to something that's happened in their life. And once things start to go to extremes, with any end of extreme, it becomes problematic, it becomes unlivable, because we are human, we can't live at extremes, we have to live somewhere in between. And so this idea that you're going to eradicate all your waste, or your waste is going to provide the energy or the resources to build everything that you need again, that seems very facile. You know, and even if you could get it to work, the circular economy, which I should have typed it in for you guys, I've certainly seen it for Glasgow City Council, and I know they're doing it everywhere. It doesn't make sense from a capitalist point of view, from their point of view, because how do you make money if you're, and so that for us, then you can see that the intention is not that we make any money, because you're not going to make any money in a circular economy. I'm not saying that capitalism is the most wonderful thing that's ever, you know, been, you know, conceived. I'm just saying that you need to think about whether you would prefer the alternative of, you know, there's no scope for opportunity for people in any direction. And also, they are going to make money out of it. They're going to make money, you're not going to make money. And the way they're going to make money is through the data. So they're going to be watching and monitoring and comparing. Everything that you do can be compared. Everything that you do, it doesn't, I mean, it just doesn't matter. It could be as offensive as comparing the scores of your children's, you know, reading skills in schools, or it could be as, you know, apparently benign as I don't know how long it takes the average person to walk to work in their 10-minute neighborhood. Maybe we can make them smaller. I don't know, you know, but they can compare things, and what they can do is they can gamble. They can think, okay, I think that, you know, it's only going to take the majority of people 5 minutes to walk to work, and somebody's like, oh, this is so much fun. I think it's going to take them 7 minutes to walk to work, so let's bet on it. And then you know, collect and compare your data, and then people make money in that way. So that they do intend to make money. They just don't intend any ordinary person to make money. So that's the circular economy. And with that, I think I've said enough, and you've all paid so much diligent attention. Thank you so much.